that roar when you ran out just puts goosebumps on the back of your neck.
Moss went straight through. Andrews there.
He's just forever looking for an opportunity.
Exhilarating football.
That's a good sign of a good team.
Accelerates and punches through them.
And he's only going to get better.
And the hammer stands them up. And Queensland going to do it again.
Well, thanks for joining us once again on Queenslander, back after our mid-season break for the Olympics. And boys, how good was it watching the Paris Games and knowing that in 2 editions' time, it's here in Brisbane?
Yeah, I think knowing that it's coming to Brisbane I had a little bit more interest in this one in Paris. Obviously, we did really well, which is great. So well done to all those participants that represented their country well. And if you won medals, well done. But it was good to watch, and it's sort of, even though it's 8 years away, it sort of sets a good platform for what's coming.
Yeah, you're right, Lockie. The excitement's there. A long way out. We've got plenty of time to be patient, but when you get to see the world's best athletes, the best in their business, taking part in competition, it's quite remarkable. And you want the time. You actually want to get older quicker for that time to pass by. It's a real thrill, and to imagine that that's coming to Brisbane is something different. What a setup that was in Paris. That was extraordinary. Now it's Brisbane's turn. I think we've got a fair bit of work to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in Brisbane were 50-50, like you said, Lockie, until we saw it, and that makes you hit home of like, this could really be a legacy item for Brisbane.
Well, they did it well, Paris. The games looked good, and obviously Australia did well, but it's an opportunity for Brisbane, and Queensland. There's been a lot of talk about the stadiums and stuff, but I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to get it right. I think bold, don't think boring.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
Do it right.
Any events stand out? I love the modern pentathlon. Like, you do a bit of show jumping on the horse, you do some fencing, you swim in a 25-metre pool, then you do a race, you shoot a few pistols, a bit of everything. Any events stand out?
Sounds like they just made that up on
Yeah, I know. And they're actually going to replace the equestrian component in LA with an obstacle course. So it's going to be even better to watch.
My kids got into the skateboarding.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was early in the tournament, but that was... little kids, the 14-year-old kids, and but that was, I found that, I don't know how long that's been in the Olympic skateboarding.
Yeah, since Tokyo, yeah.
Right. But I found that good to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you weren't pleased with some of the things that you watched, you're very hard to please. But I'm a bit of an old-timer. The track and the swimming, it's quite remarkable. And to see world records be set in the toughest of events, it's quite remarkable. But, basically you've got to say that if, those events, they please everyone.
Yeah.
And if you don't, well, obviously you're not a sports person.
Yeah, and Cam McAvoy, that 50 metres freestyle, that was amazing, another Queenslander. And speaking of the swimming, how about I toss this one out for you? In the LA Games, they're transforming one of the NFL stadiums into the swimming venue. What if we did that for Suncorp Stadium? Could you imagine the atmosphere for the swimming at Suncorp Stadium if somehow they could fit a pool in there?
Oh, they'd fit a pool in there pretty easy, wouldn't they?
I just mean with the government spending.
I think just the way the stadium's set up and the steepness of the seats, like, it'd be a great atmosphere. There's no doubt about that. Interesting to see what they dig up.
Yeah.
They have to dig a big hole. It used to be a cemetery.
Yeah, it used to be a cemetery, and I'm sure there's still a few bodies that would be down there, and that might make diving into the pool a little bit more cautious.
Probably a few teeth too laying in the grass there at Suncorp.
Well, it floods every time we get a big flood. It's bottom of Suncorp Stadium, so we know it holds water well. But back on the footy side of things, race to the finals, just 3 more rounds remaining till the finals kick off. So the Queensland teams, the Cowboys, they're in the 8 at the moment. They're 7th on 30 points, Dolphins 26, Broncos 24. So those two still in the hunt, and Titans 22. Let's forget about them. They ain't making the finals after what they've tossed up the last couple of weeks. So what are your thoughts right now? How many Queensland teams make the finals? I'm going to say 1. Cowboys are the only ones who make it.
Well, the only team, the Dolphins or the Broncos, I think go pass is the Dragons.
Yeah.
Dragons have got a tough one this week. Sharks, they're playing that at, is that at Qlder? It might be a win. No, it's at Win. So still, tough game, but it's winnable for the Dragons. Then they've got the Eels away, Raiders at home. The Dragons haven't got too bad of a draw, so it means the Broncos or the Dolphins have to, in my opinion, win every game from here. So my head's telling me one Queensland team at the moment makes the 8.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lockie. There's they're a chance, but at the business end of the season, needing to win every game, I think that might be just a little bit too tough. The Cowboys, they'll certainly be carrying the hopes of Queenslanders all over the place, so they're still a real chance of getting there. But this is going to be a hell of a series coming up.
Yeah.
There's plenty of competition for spots taking place, and to get a position in the finals, you're pretty much not going to be able to lose a game.
Yeah, so the Broncos finale is Eels, Dolphins, Storm, and the Dolphins play the Storm, Broncos and Knights. So essentially in a fortnight's time at Suncorp Stadium, that's going to be an elimination final that you'd think the Dolphins, Broncos, whoever loses that, it's definitely season done.
Well, both those teams have to win every game in my opinion, so whoever the loser out of that one is done.
Yeah, and I think the Broncos will face the Storm, a stronger version of the Storm. So listening to what Craig Bellamy wants to do. So the Storm played the Dolphins. It's weird the Storm's end of season, they played the 3 Queensland teams, the Dolphins, the Cowboys and the Broncos. So my point is for this, the Storm played the Dolphins Saturday night in Melbourne, and then they played the Cowboys the following Thursday in Townsend.
He's going to rest them for the Cowboys.
So I would think the Storm would rest the majority of their players for the second last round of the season, then get stronger for that Broncos game. So I think, unfortunately, the Broncos are going to lose out in that situation.
Yeah, okay. Oh, well, it's a few weeks ahead, but I agree.
Some interesting games.
It'll be like, because you've got to travel from Melbourne to Townsville.
Yeah, and then you've got to come back to Brisbane the next week, Yeah,
so it makes sense to rest them that round.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a tough future in front. It'll be good to be a tourist to go on those, but gee, that's a tough draw that they're facing.
Well, Storm got Broncos what night? Friday or Thursday?
Thursday night, I'm pretty sure.
So they might even after Townsville stay in Brisbane all week. Queensland all week.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, and just on the Cowboys too, they made the tough decision. They dropped their halfback, Chad Townsend. Not too many coaches would be brave enough to drop a premiership-winning halfback a month out from the finals. What did you make of that? It turned out to be a masterstroke because Jake Clifford killed it in that win over the Raiders.
I reckon, there's a couple of things went against Chad this year. Obviously, the captaincy was given to Tom Dearden and Reuben Cotter. He's moving on from the club at the end of the year. And I think there's been a couple of big games the Cowboys haven't really fired a shot. And maybe just, I think the coach just thought that that's happened one too many times and he can't really, he can't really go into a final series with that in the back of his mind. So the other part of this was, as a coach, he wanted to see, well, if I put Jake in, I'm going to need to put him in now. I need to see what he's capable of. Yeah. And if he's capable and plays well, then then I've got a good decision to make, out of Chad or Jake. Yeah,
that's right, mate. Todd hasn't made too many decisions like that throughout the course of the year, and this being at the premier event just prior to finals, it was a big call, a very big call to make. But I think there's plenty of people saying, well, perhaps he should have made that one a week or two earlier. But looking good so far.
Yeah, Jake Clifford's been killing in the Queensland Cup this season too. He led the Northern Pride to the minor premiership, so great to see a reward for that Q Cup form. What about Val Holmes, on the other hand? He's leaving the club. He's going to the Dragons. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, he played well the other night. I think just maybe he got a clearer mind. A few things. He's probably. I think there's probably been bubbling away in the background with Val for a while. And that can affect your football when you're trying to decide your future and you're not certain where that is. So I think that's affected his football. And from the perspective of he's still, doing some good things, but there's times where he's making errors. So I just think he's probably been mentally a little bit fatigued. But he looked good the other night. Now that that's out of the way, I think you'll see a really good Val Holmes for the rest of the season.
Yeah, exactly right, Lockie. You're exactly right there. He just looked like a much fresher player. He didn't have the problems on his mind, and to be able to do that, he had everything about him that was, the decision's been made. Let's go ahead from now. It was That's as good as he's played all year.
And reuniting with Shane Flanagan, how much will that help? Because they won a premiership together at the Sharks. He's someone who can get the best out of Val.
Yeah, I've got no doubt that played its part with Val reuniting with Flano. Back in Sydney now, he's on record saying he didn't want to leave, but they've got cap pressures and they've got some young kids coming through in the centres. So I think it's a good outcome for the Cowboys. I think it's a good outcome for Val, and he's going to a place where he won a premiership in the Shire, so he knows the area. I think it's a new chapter for him, but it'll be a good one for the Dragons too. Yeah,
it's almost welcome back Qlder there. He feels comfortable there, and his performance the other night was. It just looked so comfortable, so calm, and the decision had been made, and he was 100% back to his best.
Yeah, and with the cap pressures, essentially they were paying him fullback money when they got him back from that stint in the NFL, so they couldn't really justify continuing playing fullback money when he was playing the centres, and you've got to upgrade the likes of Qlder and Dearden who have excelled.
Yeah, and you also need to know that you've got someone to replace him with, and there's some good young kids.
Yeah, Labutt and Jackson Purdue's been good.
So there's some young kids there that obviously takes a bit of salary cap pressure off, but you've got the future coming through, and it'll give them an opportunity.
And we touched on the Broncos and Dolphins before, Lockie. What's the mindset? So Broncos player, you're going in this weekend, you have to win all 3 games and have results go your way. What's their mindset at?
It's an old cliche, but just one game at a time. I mean, all their energy right now needs to be focused on the Eels on Friday night. Now, Eels don't sit high on the table, so you've got to be careful you're not complacent. You can't just sort of think that you just can turn up and get a win, get the 2 points. You got to be prepared to roll your sleeves up, work hard to get the job done. So get this week, get a good performance out of Friday night, and hope that that's enough to get 2 points and go again.
I'm sure all of the players will be reminded to achieve what we wanted to achieve, and that was get to the grand final and win that one. You've got to produce your best football on the way there. Certainly that's going to be a case, and it'll test the players, but in pressure situations, that's exactly what you love doing. Every time you go onto the field, you know that you've got to be at your best to achieve success.
What do you think's gone wrong with the Broncos this season? Were we sleeping on the fact that they lost those 4 players from the grand final, like Capewell, Herbie, Flegler and Palliser, or they just weren't up a little bit off this year and the injuries took its toll, so the depth wasn't there?
Look, last year, I think there was an expectation to play finals.
Yep.
No one expected them to get to the grand final, and look, with 20 minutes to go, it looked like we're going to win it. So no one expected that. So we go into this year, the expectation is we get back to the grand final, even though we lose some quality players. So everyone's expectation is we get back to the grand final and maybe win it. So I just don't think a combination of some injuries to key players, losing a couple of players, and dealing with the expectations, they just didn't do that well enough. And you can't dismiss Adam Reynolds' injury. They lost 6 in a row when Adam wasn't there. You lose 2 or 3 in a row, it zaps your confidence. And sometimes you need an experienced playmaker out there to find a way to win. They didn't have that at the time. So he comes back, immediate impact. Everyone thought, OK, Broncos are back. Then I think they had 2, I think it was the Bulldogs and the Titans where they were pretty much, went back to their old ways, and that was very disappointing. But at the end of the day, I just don't think they handled the expectation they had on them this year.
No, there's a lot of people suggesting that you can't just use that as an excuse, and I'm certain that the Broncos won't use it as an excuse, but you also can't not bring it in as a very important part to their game. Those are the reasons why they were struggling in the key games. Reynolds is one of those players that has enormous amounts of confidence. He has the courage as well, but he's got the experience that can help some of the players that perhaps are just a little bit down in that department in the pressure games.
Yeah, and Reece Walsh being in and out throughout the season didn't help as well. So he didn't get the continuity in the spine, and Walsh is out again with that hand fracture.
Yeah, well,
also.
Ezra and Reece had enormous seasons last year, but they're still kids.
Yeah.
So they're still learning how to be pros about every week, turning up, being consistent. That'll still, I reckon, takes 100 games before you get to that point.
I'll tell you who was good, who's a Broncos kid, Kobe Black, played really well for South Logan on the weekend, the Queensland Cup, scored a great try, so he's one to definitely watch. Just moving south to the Titans, looks as though they'll miss the top 8 yet again. What do you make of their season, Wal? They're just such a conundrum of a side. You never know what to expect.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised. I didn't think that, I thought they'd go a little bit better than what they actually did. Desi is a man that's had plenty of experience at all levels. And I thought that the Titans would be going a little bit better under the guidance there, and it was disappointing. Some of their matches, and I know you and I sort of spoke about some of them that were extremely poor.
Yeah.
We both thought that they would go a lot better than they actually did. We can't overrate them, but we can't underrate them.
Yeah.
And it's, in tough times like that, I think that you learn the most about maturity in your game. And unfortunately, that wasn't displayed.
I think they've come a long way since round 1.
Yeah.
They lost the first 6 games, remember? And a lot of that was about trying to get their heads around the way Des wants to play. And Kieran's been a big driver of that. They then found a win. Then they started to build some momentum, and people go, they're playing with some resilience. I think they've come a fair way with their resilience. There's moments in games still where they lapse and they let in, 2 or 3 tries, and that's sort of, that's what happened to them on the weekend.
Yeah.
So I think they need to get better in that department. But I reckon next year, as long as some of their key players stay fit, I think they'll be playing finals.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting. They've got a couple of good key young players that are coming through that will certainly inspire the rest of those around and the coach.
Yeah,
Tino.
Yeah, and Tino. One of those young players, Wal alluded to there, Keanu Kinney, the fullback. He's been superb. But Des has come out and said he's going to solve the fullback conundrum over the off-season. So you got Kinney, you got Brimson, you got Jaden Campbell. I think we've decided now Jaden Campbell's the 6. Would you go with that, Lockie?
Well, I just think you look at Kinney.
He's got to be in the team still.
Yeah, and he's only small, but his work rate is enormous. He just gets the metres that he gains every game. Like I think, I don't know. We're talking about putting 5 into 4.
Yeah. I think they need to make a tough decision and go.
He's got something about him though.
Yeah.
Kinney, I think you got to leave him a fullback.
Yeah.
But whenever Brimson comes back, he brings something.
Yeah.
But is he a super sub? Is he a 14?
Yeah. I think they need to make a tough decision. The thing with the Titans, I always find it's a club that struggles to play under pressure. So they had that big win over the Broncos, then all of a sudden people thought maybe they can get a run and sneak into the 8. And then they get flogged by the Sharks and they don't turn up against the Dragons. So how do you deal with pressure?
That's immaturity, right?
Yeah.
Now, you've got someone like Kieran Foran just played his 300th game, but he's still got a lot of kids around him.
Yeah.
Right? So, to your point, you go in and you beat the Broncos like you do, and that's probably one of the game of the year where they get up for that.
Yeah.
So it's always a risk what happens the week after. But then to not score a point and get done 44-0 by the Sharks, again, I talk about, to get that consistency in an individual, you'd have to, I reckon, play 100 games.
Yeah.
You know what you got to do every week to turn up and play well. And they've got a lot of kids in that team that aren't at that point, and that's probably you're going to get those inconsistent performances.
Yeah, and it may have affected their confidence a little bit, but I think Desi also found that as a real slap in the face. He was. I was listening for his response after those games, and he really was sort of shelled. He was backwards. He was on the ropes, thinking, I was feeling confident about how they were going to go today, but he was really struggling to explain exactly what had gone wrong.
Well, the Titans are at home this weekend, Sunday afternoon, footy there on the Gold Coast against the Roosters. But make sure you tune in Friday night, a must-win game for the Broncos on Nine's Wide World of Sport. Footy back at Suncorp Stadium, Brisbane up against the Eels.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights, action, 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour, grab a seat on the couch for that. And of course, my favourite, Freddie in the Own.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm, subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.